All right, what's up, everybody? It's Mike and Dylan here, answering your questions. Question number one, are you tracking the Great Springs project? Do you foresee any potential collaboration or partnerships with that project in the future? Seems like implementing some of the earthworks y'all have featured in your videos could greatly help their goal of replenishing our springs and aquifers. I actually was not aware of this project until someone sent this question, and so this is a cool example of like our community and audience, helping us to become aware of cool projects. Were you aware of this one?
Nope, I've never heard of this one. I'm aware of Violet Crown Trail
Yeah.
and all the whole like north to south stuff, but I didn't know there was like a whole unified spring thing. So
Yeah, I checked it out. It looks like they've got a lot of good momentum. I would say that Symbiosis right now has been more focused on the private landowner sphere, and these guys are doing more like public stuff. So they're putting land into conservation easement, which is awesome, and then putting trails on it and kind of making it quasi-public in a way. So that's just sort of like a different sphere that Symbiosis hasn't quite broken into yet, and it's sort of, it's a lot of like licensed people and a lot of sort of politics and stuff goes into those projects. I mean, it's amazing how much work goes into like creating a trail, but then it's there forever, and if they take care of it, it's awesome.
but yeah, if you do work for somebody with them or somebody adjacent or similar, shoot us a message.
Yeah, we'd be happy to get involved for sure. Has anyone in the government approached Symbiosis to see how the practices you show in your videos could be implemented at a larger scale across Central Texas / the state? It seems like implementing these concepts at a large scale would help prevent flooding and help solve our water crisis during drought. Yeah, so we have received some people reaching out to us. I would say it's happening faster than I expected because we haven't even been super public about what we're doing for very long now.
Yeah,
It's
only
been
about
like a year.
yeah, a year tops, and only about 6 months of that year even has been kind of full gas. So
Yeah, we just made a couple of videos last summer and then kind of, yeah, so anyway, yes, people are taking notice. We are starting to get some contacts there. We're also starting to proactively reach out to some folks in the government, especially around like the flooding repair and how we deal with all the debris and how we might turn that into an asset instead of something that just takes a lot of money and energy to get rid of. So we hope to continue to gain credibility in the eyes of people in government just through continuing to do our good work and then eventually finding ways to work in partnership with the government. And one of the reasons that this is really important is because when we're trying to work on whole watersheds, it encompasses a bunch of different individual private landowners, and a lot of those owners either need to be convinced that this is a good idea or need help funding the work that's going to restore that watershed and do a really great public good of helping to increase our water supply, decrease our flooding. We'll get to more of that in the next couple questions, but yeah, short answer, yes. What are your thoughts on the recent flooding in Texas and how land management plays into that?
that's a deep question.
Yeah.
I'll let you start, and then I'll piggyback.
Yeah, I think it has been scientifically proven that like development is increasing how quickly runoff is hitting our rivers, and then that's causing flooding. I think developing in floodplains, of course, is part of the problem. I think that parking out our floodplains is part of the problem. I think not having as much rough areas that are just like thickets in the floodplain can be part of the problem because that helps to slow the water down when the floodplain does get activated. I think people clearing and burning off a bunch of juniper all at once and then losing the topsoil exacerbates runoff. So these are all just like some of the things that are happening. I would also say overgrazing is a big part of it too, and that's like part of how the agricultural exemptions are incentivized by the NRCS. So I think land management is a huge piece of it, and I think it's also the biggest potential solution lever that we have as well.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I've been reading a biography about Lyndon B. Johnson, who some of you may know grew up in around the Pedernales Valley and whatnot. And in that, there's a lot of talk and kind of old folklore and conversation around land management way back then because his family came from cattle and cotton and all that stuff. And what you find when you read stuff from, as far back as the 1870s, I think, they knew back then, or people started to know back then, that overgrazing, as they learned how the hill country worked, they started to notice that the flooding got worse. So I think that's another important thing to keep in mind is that this is not a new problem. We've definitely made it worse over the past 130, 140 years, but it's also something that we've been doing pretty much since day one of, European colonization of the state of Texas. So, you know, take take that from that information what you will, but it's not a new problem. But I think now more than ever, with more people living here than have ever lived here, and that growing faster and faster. I think sound land management practices, not removing topsoil or not removing ground cover, whether that's savanna or forest, whatever, is massive. And we're working on a full video about this that should hopefully come out here pretty soon. It's almost done, where we'll dive into the deep kind of weeds of all this. But the gist of it is really that this region is meant to flood. It's why we have the springs and aquifers that so define the region. The hill country would not be the hill country that we know if it was not for flooding. So we probably shouldn't stop it altogether, but really the idea is that we are exacerbating the negatives and reducing the positives, and we want to flip that equation to increase positives, reduce negatives. So,
yeah, my friend Brian Hummel has coined the term of take flooding liabilities and turn them into groundwater assets, and I would also say turn them into like recreational assets because it increases base flow of rivers as well.
For sure.
Question number 4. Why don't y'all show more of the building and in-progress parts of your projects?
Yeah, I'll take that question. It's my responsibility. I produce, edit, shoot, and create all the videos. And it's something we're super aware of and we're trying to fix and work on. But just to give you kind of my high-level excuse, I promise it's a good one. When we look at things like Project Insoke as a series, and we look at things like the Cliffside series that's going on right now, although they release, in back-to-back weeks, typically, those are shot over, especially the Cliffside video. We started shooting that in, I think, the last week of February, first week of March. And the last day of shooting that we've done, and it's not even the last day of shooting we'll ever do, but the last day shooting we did was in July. So that's work that's being spread across, 3 to 4 months. And then if you look at the fact that that's happening at the same time as Insoke is happening, and that those sites are 300 miles apart from each other, there's only so much of me to go around, and I have other responsibilities. So all that's to say, it's just tricky to have cameras everywhere filming all the time. And obviously when the guys and gals are out there with pickaxes and heavy machinery and it's 99 degrees outside and they're just trying to get they're fighting through mesquite and juniper and other things, the last thing that they want to do is also film themselves. So all that's to say, we're trying to find solutions, things like GoPros, trail cams, time lapse, all that type of stuff. We're working on experimenting and trying to find ways to incorporate more of that stuff. But of course, if you guys have ideas, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, we're not freaking influencers, y'all.
Yeah, yeah. We do other things besides film. So,
how did Project Insoke do after the floods? Yeah, so we had a lot of folks asking us, even on like July 5th, like right after the flooding started, before it was even done, like, oh my gosh, how are you guys doing there at Project Insoke? Now, Project Insoke is near Cuero, Texas, which is pretty far southeast of Austin, and so really the flooding hit more west, and was it a little northwest? No, it was a little southwest of Austin was where a lot of the flooding hit, and then there was also a lot of it northwest. So, but anyway, all of it happened west of Austin, and then actually the Highland Lakes did an amazing job of slowing all that water down, so it didn't really get past the Austin or New Braunfels area. Canyon Lake and all of the lakes north of Austin, and then the lakes along the San Gabriel River, going east of Austin, all did their job basically and stopped the flooding from going downstream. Insoke only got about, I think it was like 5 inches during that time, but it did fill up all the features and they all worked perfectly. And now Jason is reporting that he's seeing amazing results both in like the vegetative growth and in like no runoff leaving the property. So far with that amount of rain, of course they didn't get the 20 inches that other places did, and he's also reporting that he's seeing some increased flow in parts of the creek. It's not entirely clear from his text message, but we want to go back out there and check it out soon.
Yeah.
And of course we want to do more work out there, which is part of the plan. So we'll keep reporting on it. Question number 6, perhaps the most popular question that we've received. Why don't you just use beavers? Man, I wish we could. I wish we could just hire 20 beavers and have them on staff. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it'd make a lot of our jobs easier. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think, actually, when people ask that question, I show them that actually we had beavers move in on one of our projects.
Yeah.
And we were so stoked about it because that's the dream, honestly, is to build an environment that beavers want to move into and then to have them start to snowball the work that we've done, because that's what we're all about, is about working with nature. Some of the challenges with working with beavers is, like, I think you actually have to create the habitat that they need. So they either need a pond that is wet year round with a lot of excess trees around it that they can harvest and build their dam out of, or you need a year round flowing creek and or river, and most of that stuff is either protected or it doesn't flow year round anymore, or there's development around it, and so people are not going to take kindly to beavers just like creating huge lakes and flooding the development or the park or whatever it is that's right there on the river. So I think we need to societally work on that, but our goal is to create the habitat and create the ability for beavers to come back and to start to heal our water cycles with us, with our support. So we're working on it, honestly.
Yeah, I guess I'll add to that. I think the big thing is beavers used to be in Texas. They used to be all over our river systems a long time ago, and then they were pushed out or hunted out. And then just through land management practices and they've been kept from returning. They are returning in a very small amount in certain river systems. I think the Guadalupe has some population, as does the Colorado. There might be more. But again, for every one of the landowners that we work with or the projects that we do, there are 10, 15, 20 more properties that want nothing to do with beavers. Or the, ideas around that. So, that's the other, thing is you can't just put beavers on 1,000 acres in a fence and just say, this is yours. They're beavers. They're going to go where they want to go and do what they want to do because, they're animals. And so, as much as we would love to just put them on one property and say, that's your property, do your thing, there's a very good chance they could get up and move to the next one. They move to the next one to right now across the fence line, and now suddenly they're being hunted by the landowner or, whatever it may be. So that's the other thing is we don't also want to just put beavers on a piece of property where they're just going to get, trapped, hunted, whatever. The next property over. That may not happen all the time, but the point being is, if we were to utilize beavers as a tool ourselves as like a deploying asset, we need to make sure that we're not just going to set them up for failure and or just to be trapped or hunted to be frank. So
we are working with a wildlife rehabilitation center though that may actually be able to give us access to beavers in the right scenarios. So we're super stoked about that. And then I did want to tie this to one more thing, which is that like a lot of people say like, oh, well, if you're slowing down the water in the highlands and soaking it in, you're robbing it from the people downstream of you. But if you look at how beavers used to work within the ecosystem, they were doing that all the time and all over the place. And it actually created more water abundance across the whole United States of America, more fire resilience, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, there's tons of research on this. So I think that in and of itself kind of negates that point that people are making. It's just a matter of doing enough of it over time, and it starts to have a positive effect.
Yeah, I mean, we've already recreated things, like taken what beavers have done and applied it at an extreme scale, which is the Highland Lakes and all the dams. I mean, those are the infrastructure that allow humans to exist in this region in the scale that we do. Both from preventing flooding, which we used to just smoke Austin every 4 or 5 years, but also giving us drinking water, in years of drought. So, that's basically what beavers were doing already, but we've just done it at a massive scale, which is great. It's fantastic, but we stopped doing it at a local small scale. So again, going into that idea of stealing water, that's just not how water works. And, you only have to look at the Highland Lakes, Lake Travis, all those dams in the Guadalupe with Canyon Lake and others about the efficacy of and effectiveness of, trapping water and during times of extreme flooding and then utilizing that water over a long period of time. So
I only have a small yard and space. What's the best thing I can do to help with what y'all are doing? I think my list is compost, catch rainwater off of your roof, even if that's a very simple setup. Stop watering your lawn and let it die, and stop using fertilizers and pesticides. Plant native plants and grow food. Repair stuff instead of throwing it away. Don't buy stuff that is planned obsolescence based stuff that you're just going to have to throw away. Hang up your clothes to dry outside, or just don't use your dryer. It's actually nice. I love it. And build community. I think a lot of what makes us have to rely on consumer society is not having community around us, and then having like the services that a community offers you sold back to you. Yeah, I think that's what I got on that one.
Yeah, I've got a small yard myself. We're actually there are 2 videos about that yard and what I've done so far. I've done a lot since those 2 videos. You can go watch those videos. I'll link them up there. But we are going to revive that series. But the gist of it is basically I had the standard Bermuda grass lawn with like 2 developer placed post oaks, or live oaks. Sorry, not post oak. And yeah, I've basically done some, berm and swale kind of setups, like a very like condensed light version of that. And then have done extremely heavy native planting. And I'll put a video of what it looks like over this right now, but it's crazy. There are flowers and blooms everywhere. It's all running off of rainwater, which I'm just catching off of my house. Water that was otherwise just going straight into the ground and down to a drainage ditch and right back into a river, which ties into the whole flooding thing earlier. If it just exacerbates that, so I'm slowing that water down, catching it, utilizing it for these plants. There are lizards, there are frogs, there are pollinators everywhere. I mean, dragonflies, like 7 different types of bees, hummingbirds, you name it. So what used to be a small patch of just dead Bermuda, like just Bermuda with no life in it besides maybe some ants, is now just like this super massive biodiversity bomb of just, all sorts of life and insects and other things. And it's really not that much maintenance. I occasionally have to trim some stuff, but otherwise 2 to 3 times a week I just open some valves on a rainwater barrel, and the system just kind of runs itself. And now we get to sit on our backyard and watch all the birds and animals and see all the flowers and other things. And I know that that little bit of habitat goes a long way in what is effectively a desert of habitat for a lot of these species. So if you've got the space, it's probably a little bit of an investment up front, whether that's money or time, to kind of get it going. But once you get it going, it's not hands-free, it's not maintenance-free, but those systems, I promise you, will, in the long run, be way more enjoyable, way more beneficial, and probably less, Sisyphean than trying to mow and tame grass and then having to keep the grass alive in drought and all these other things. So,
Do you have any regrets about doing that project?
no,
Nice.
I don't regret it. I think the one thing I would give advice to people would be, don't. You're going to learn a lot about plants that even if you think you know a lot, you're going to learn a lot about plants, and what goes where and what you want where that you don't know when you start. And I'll cover some of this in the video, but the gist of it is basically like start with the planting, go like 40 to 50% of what you're probably going to need, and then over time slowly fill in based off of things, because you're going to find out about plants you didn't know about, where you're like, oh, I wish I had somewhere to plant that, and now you're trying to find places to plant. You're also going to just find stuff that you think by every metric, by every single thing you ever read, by every bit of advice, somebody tells you, oh, that should work where it's going to work, and then you put it there and it doesn't work for whatever reason, who knows. So there's going to be stuff that dies. You're going to have to try different things. But the point being is, like, the faster you can just get plants into the ground and kind of invest in that future of like, okay, getting them in the ground, knowing that in a year they're going to look like this, 2 years they're going to look like that, the better. Hardscaping, stuff like that, you can do at any time. But the faster you can get trees into the ground, the faster you can get native plants into the ground, the better, because obviously they take time to grow. So it's an investment not just for yourself, and then even if we want to be practical and pragmatic, property value, but you're also paying that, benefit on to potentially somebody else in the future if you ever move, decide to sell, whatever. That is a benefit that that person will also then get to reap from. So
Yeah, congratulations on getting to fire your lawn care service
yeah,
recently. That's
yeah,
awesome. I know they're calling you back like crazy. They're
yeah,
hounding you. They're begging you to
yeah.
hire them back, but
I'm not going to
you're
name
staying
them.
firm.
I'm not going to name them, but they are not taking the "I don't have a lawn anymore" statement very
Like,
nicely.
what? You must have a
So,
lawn.
but yeah, and it's nice. I mean, that's money of monthly money that I don't have to spend, and
It's your impulse plant buy budget
yeah,
now.
basically like it's I could say I'm saving it, but I just end up buying more plants that I don't have space for. So yeah.
Y'all drop some comments on this video if you want Dylan to show you more about that project. We paused it for a while because he's trying to release videos that y'all want to
Yeah.
see, and so just let him know if you want to see more about that. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, bother me on Instagram like everybody else does about it. So.
All right, so this question kind of connects to the last one. It's like the next
Yeah.
layer. How can people who are not landowners at all support the regenerative movement? And I think a lot of the stuff that I said before still tracks, and there's some things that you can do and like move from place to place with where you're renting. That's how I started out, of course. Like I would move my compost from place to place.
Yeah.
At one point, I had like 10 yards of compost because a friend of mine was like getting stuff from juice bars, and I freaking moved it all to a farm I was working on by myself. But I think a lot of things that are important to do is to buy from local regenerative farmers. Dylan's made some videos about Lee and Robert, and so you can see those videos. Of course, there's great farmers in Austin for veggies. That's huge, man. Every dollar that goes away from the grocery store and directly to a farmer is really, really important to that farmer. Whereas like the grocery store isn't going to care that much. Of course, you're still going to buy some stuff from the grocery store. You're going to buy some staples. You're going to buy some stuff that's just out of season, right? But take 50% of your grocery budget and just put it to local farmers. And at least when it comes to buying meat, like I think it's actually a better deal as long as you
Yeah.
buy enough of it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's no different to me than like, again, just to put this in pragmatic terms, like if you're a big Costco person, like it's the same principle. You're just buying your meat from, a singular person instead of, Costco, whatever. And I think, the one thing I want to kind of hammer home on it too is that like, if you really think about kind of a lot of the issues that exist with, meat, whether, as that pertains to the environment and whatnot, a lot of that does stem from the fact that when a cow is being processed, for example, that is being split across however many people, that's going however many places. Whereas, like, if you can kind of localize your impact to, like, if I'm going to buy, however many bits of a cow from, however many quarters of a cow from Lee, I go to Lee, I buy half a cow, and that the other half of that cow is going to go to somebody else in the Central Texas area. Like, you've localized your family's impact to just half of one cow, and you're utilizing that whole animal's, meat, as opposed to like I'm only eating ribeyes and I'm only eating this. So, and I just prefer it, at least personally, also from like a planning standpoint. Again, looking at the bulk side of things, like just having a deep freeze or a freezer full of it is great because you just know you have it and you don't have to think about it at the grocery store ever. I think one other pivot, to kind of move away from the buying side of things and to move into like what you can do in person, is find local organizations near you that are doing things similar to what we do, but in a nonprofit manner. Just off the top of my head, Casa de Miel is somebody that we work with a lot on their property. You can totally go volunteer for them and go literally see the projects that we've done for them and work on those projects and assist them. They've got a food forest. They've got a bunch of animals. Yeah, they've kind of got
Composting.
the whole suite out there. They're super rad. So again, link below. Another great one, if you're kind of more in the plant world, is Native Plant Rescue Project, and kind of adjacent projects like that, or they go into sites before they're developed and basically rescue rare and endangered species plants that are kind of often very overlooked by the average person. And then not only do they rescue those, they take seeds from those and then they propagate those and they try and get those into local nurseries and into rescue gardens, whatever. You can oftentimes you can take those plants from that and put it in your own garden. It's literally free plants that you're rescuing, native plants that you're rescuing from development that otherwise would have been wiped out. And the last piece I'm going to add to that too is also like if you live in an apartment or you live in a rented house in a neighborhood or whatever it may be, is like there's two trains of thoughts here. There's the legal way and the illegal way. If you want to learn about the illegal way, go check out our friend Joey at Crime Pays Botany Doesn't. I'll let him be the one that bears that. But he's got a lot of stuff about how to plant stuff and kind of the hell strips and whatever. But at least for for our purposes, kind of the more legal way would be just again, like Mike said, community. Like talk to people. If there's like a dead strip in your neighborhood, even if it's like you rent, like if it's a dead strip in the neighborhood that's just not being used for anything, like to try and get a hold of the HOA, whoever, and just be like, hey, can I manage that? Tying into what you were saying with like farmers is like farmers need help all the time. Like a lot of these small farms, they run like family operations. Like befriend them, buy stuff from them, but also like hey offer services. Chances are they'll pay you, but or you might just work for food. That I've plenty of times in the past where it's like hey,
Yeah.
come help me on a day of work and I'll give you XYZ for it, and you get to learn, you get to help them. You get awesome food from it. Everybody wins. And that's also a great opportunity to then, if you wanted to do something like this full time, you have that resume building, so to speak, of like, now I know how to do this and I know how to do that. Yeah. Whether you decide to buy land in the future or work in the space in the future, it's just experience. And it's, again, I think the biggest thing is like, you can't really sit and let it come to you. You have to kind of go out and find it. That's the unfortunate piece where we're at with, the climate around this stuff here is that a lot of people just aren't aware of this and aren't privy to this, and there's not enough momentum behind it. So you have to create it yourself. But I promise you, as somebody who's done this themselves, like if you just kind of go out and seek it, you will find way more than you could ever actually engage with. Because there's just not enough people doing this, and there is a big demand for it. It's just kind of under the surface. So.
And the last thing and the easiest thing that you can do is spread the word. Like and share videos that we make, that other people make. Comment on that stuff, engage, ask questions, learn.
Yeah.
That actually does go a long way, and it doesn't cost you anything, so, why not?
Yeah.
Next question, do you offer any educational courses we can join in on? So currently, we are not focused on education outside of our own organization, but we're always learning ourselves and training everyone who works with us. So we are always educating, and we're educating our clients, but we have yet to develop that side of our offering, but we're excited about it. And so I would say that is on the middle horizon.
Yeah. I think, I think the way to think about it is like we're working really hard to build out internal resources. And as we build out those internal resources, we are starting to make some of them available to Patreon subscribers right now. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber and you want to see some of that, go check it out on the Patreon. But as we kind of build up the internal stuff, we're kind of slow dripping some of that information to Patreon. Some of that information is just not relevant. Like you guys don't need to know what our first aid procedure is on a job site, for example.
How do you grease a bobcat?
Yeah, there's a lot of boring stuff that you guys, trust me, you have no interest in. As somebody who has to film and edit it, it's not that exciting. But as we do some of the interesting stuff like berm building and whatnot like that, that's when we're going to start to look at releasing more. And then this is also where you guys come into play as well, is helping us, know what you guys want to film or you guys want to see. So, if there's specific stuff where a lot of people are just like, hey, we really want to learn more about berm building, or we really want to learn more about rainwater tanks and like a small setting and a big setting, whatever that may be, that helps us determine, okay, cool, if we're going to make a course, whether that's free, paid, however it's structured, whatever, that's how it helps us steer those decisions. So I would say, keep an eye on Patreon, keep an eye on our social media and whatnot as we start to slow drip more stuff as it comes through. Yeah. And then in the not too distant future, I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot and give you an exact timeline. But in the not too distant future, we're definitely going to start looking at releasing proper structured courses. Again, what that'll look like in terms of access and how it's all set up. That's something, again, where we're open to feedback from everybody and want to hear your thoughts on what that might look like. I would just say if you have thoughts, ideas, questions, whatever on that stuff, we're here to listen. That's why we do these Q&As, and we try to answer a lot of comments. So just leave them down below, and we'll address those as best we can. So.
Okay, next question. Do y'all sell any merch I could get my hands on?
So, do we sell merch? No, not yet. I think it's something that Mike and I and the team want to do eventually. I think it's a no-brainer, not just for getting you guys involved, but also because we just need new stuff. So,
Our stuff's getting a little worn.
yeah. I kind of just to be fully transparent with you, kind of the challenges that we face there is one, stocking inventory for a company that doesn't really have a business built around inventory and shipping is obviously like a big hurdle. So we don't want to end up in a situation where we just have a bunch of stuff lying around and then like I or you or somebody else is like physically running back and forth to ship stuff.
We don't have a lot of extra bandwidth for that.
So that's one challenge for us to figure out. Whether that's drop shipping, I don't know. We'll figure that out later. I think the other piece is, kind of being in line with what Symbiosis is. We don't want to just go to the lowest common bidder and just say, cool, slap a logo on it, call it a day, move on, and who knows where those shirts are coming from, who knows how they got here, whatever.
A lot of it's plastic that's going to like leach into your body.
Yeah, or even it's just not great quality. Like, I think the goal for us would be to have stuff that you could potentially even wear doing what we do outside. Basically, we want to make sure that whatever we're selling or giving you guys is the same stuff that we would be willing to wear in the field and whatnot. So that's another thing, is making sure we find the right partner and all of that. So, that's kind of the two main hurdles.
Yeah, drop us a comment below if you guys know of any good suppliers for regenerative fabric, clothing. I mean, it needs to be convenient enough as well and not super expensive is the challenge, right? But it might end up being like $50 for a t-shirt to really do it right. And if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. And that'll help support that movement as well.
Yeah, I guess one piece in that too is also if you own like a clothing company or, there's a bunch of like, local / statewide, specific clothing brands, of course, feel free to hit us up. We'd love to collaborate potentially. That might be a fun way to bridge that gap, whatever it may be. So.
Yeah, thanks guys. All right, second to last question, what's next for Symbiosis? So really what we're working on is internal systems because we do a lot of different stuff, including we've added home building now, which is a whole nother business. We're basically running like somewhere around like 6 or 7 businesses under one business umbrella, maybe more than that if you really break it down. And so we need to do a lot of work to systematize what we're already doing and make all of that run as smoothly as possible. And then after that, I think really we're building up our core team here in the Austin area. And then once that is done sufficiently that we can handle the demand in this little radius that we cover right now, I think what's up next is for us to start opening branches in other cities. And I think that's more like longer term horizon than educational courses. But I think we're within 5 years of opening branches in San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. Fredericksburg might even be like the first place we open a branch because it's not that far and we have a lot of clients there already. We're already doing work there. We're just commuting to get there.
Yeah.
I would say on the content side, we've got a lot of stuff coming up that's like way more near term, but that's kind of bigger picture what's up for us.
Yeah. I can say from the content side too, all of this is subject to change because as the business grows and changes, as does what I do. But my goal for you guys and all of you is basically how can I continue to not only create value for people who already own land and give you guys the tools and education and share our learnings and things that we're finding out and whatnot with y'all, so you can make educated choices for your situation, whatever that may be. But also, how can I start to find ways to create opportunities and get more people who don't own land or don't own homes engaged? And how can we elevate nonprofits and partnerships and other people in the community that can use y'all's willpower and manpower and whatnot to do awesome things. So not just about us, it's also how can we elevate other people in the community as well, so that you guys can learn about them, get engaged with them, and help basically raise the whole movement up and not just ourselves. So,
all right, last question. Some wonderful YouTube commenter said, how come you never have women in your videos? we do have women that work in the company, but they're not on the camera a lot of times. And, you know, that's not intentional or because we don't think that women can do this kind of work or anything like that. We have hired quite a few women over the years, and of course they're amazing people, great contributors to the company. So it's just kind of been luck of the draw, honestly.
Yeah, I think an important bit of context for people is that I think the people you see on camera are me occasionally, you obviously, Adam, Chris, Ryan, and sometimes Justin. That is only 6 of the almost 20 people that work here. There are a lot of people on the ground doing projects that you just don't ever see. This actually does tie back into our earlier conversation about how come you don't show the in-between. That's part of the reason why you don't see the other 13 to 14 people all that much right now, is because they're the ones usually on the ground in the Bobcats, in the skid steers. You know, they're the ones doing stuff. There are some stuff, you know, some other people are slowly being added. The other thing is not everybody wants to be in front of camera, which I don't blame them. It's kind of intimidating putting yourself in front of, you know, 10,000 plus people. You know, we've had videos go to almost 200,000. Not everybody wants that. So all else to say is, I think to answer the question too is, you know, we do have several women that work at the company. They've been awesome. In fact, Sarah, who has actually been in some of our videos, if you go back to the earlier ones, and you will continue to see them pop up. It's just you basically get one small slice into a almost 20-person company right now, and we're doing our best to kind of expand that. But at the same time, not everybody wants to be on camera. We also can't possibly capture everybody on camera. All
right, hey, thanks guys. Appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to learn more about what we do, how we do it, why we do it, you can hop over to our website. There's tons of good articles. You can join our newsletter. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We'd love to see you there and answer your questions. Thanks again. Enjoy.